If you want your drum mixes to compete with any modern rock or metal mix out there, then actually the drum room mics play a very significant role in that. You always hear the professionals and the big name engineers talk about how they like to track drums in big rooms and use multiple sets of room mics, and how they are such a big part of their drum mixes. And when I started out, that stuff just never really clicked for me. I just didn't really get it. I just didn't really know how to process them properly and how to make the room mics not sound ugly and boomy. And so I just purposely mixed them too low most of the time, which definitely caused me to end up with more kind of injustice for all kind of drums with tons of attack, but no real sustain and length and sense of space around them. And so once I learned how to process my room mics, etc., it actually became fun for me, and it actually did become a very big part of my drum mixes as well. So in this video I want to share 3 key insights that I've had over the years that actually made room mics click for me, and how you can apply that in your mixes as well. Alright, I'm in Pro Tools now. I have this song put out by a band called Summersile. I guess I'll just let you listen to a section of this song with just the vocals muted so that we can really focus on the instrumentals here, and then we'll just dive deep into the room mics after that. Let's say play it, let's see what happens. I'll play this again, and then I'll mute the room mics themselves so that you can hear just how much of the drum sound they actually make up. So here we go. So as you can hear, they make up a very significant part of this entire drum mix, and as soon as you mute them, the drums just fall flat, right? It's very two-dimensional all of a sudden, instead of a nice three-dimensional image that we get from the room mics, and the sound in between all the drum hits is significantly less dense, and so we're just losing a lot of weight and a lot of power in these drums simply by muting these room mics. So now let's take a look at these 3 insights that I've had on how you can mix them to make all of that good stuff happen. Alright, let's take a look at the first key insight, which is compression with a fast release setting. Compression on room mics is a very common practice, of course, and the main goal for compressing the room mics is usually not really to enhance the attack of a drum sound, but it's more to emphasize everything that is not attack. So like the sustain and like the ringing out of like a snare drum or like a kick drum or whatever, and really to bring up all these sounds in between the actual drum hits. First up, let's just play these room mics in solo with no compression or EQ engaged whatsoever, just the raw sound. Here we go. And now I'll let you listen to this again, and I'll engage the compressor here, and I want you to listen to all the sound in between these drum hits that is really being brought up by the compressor, and how the kick as well as the snare just sound as if they ring out a lot longer and as if they have more sustain. So listen for that. Here we go. And it's really the fast release setting that is doing most of the heavy lifting there, because notice what happens when we slow down on that release setting. It's like all of that pumpy sound and all of that extra sustain that we just gained is completely disappears all of a sudden. And that is because, well, with the slow release, notice the metering here. It's like the compressor will be triggered by a drum hit, and so it starts doing gain reduction. But then since the release is so slow, it's not really coming back up. It's just like constantly lowering the volume here by that setting. But then with the fast release, the compressor will be triggered by the drum hit, so it starts doing gain reduction. And then, because of the fast release, it will immediately start coming back up, which is all that sound in between the drum hits that is being brought up back to 0 gain reduction, if that makes sense. And that is really what is giving you that full sound, and that is really what is emphasizing the sustain and the sound in between all these drum hits in a nice way. So the release setting at the fastest, that is really the most important factor here when it comes to compressing your room mics, and really bring up all that nice sound in between the hits. Okay, now the second key insight here is, let's put these compressed rooms in context of the full drum mix. So let me just mute the guitars and the bass, and then we'll play all the drums all together with the rooms engaged as well. And right now, it's just a boomy mess, right? It's just that low mid-range, especially in the room mics here, is just way too much here. The kind of, I don't know, just boomy, like oomph sound in all these kick hits. And it's really ruining all the tightness of my actual kick sound itself. So instead of using this plugin that I had in the final mix, let me just dial this in from scratch so you can see my process there. And so again, it's about that low mid-range rumble that we really don't need here. So let's see if we can find that and get rid of the most of that. It's always around 150, 160 hertz in all room mics that I'm mixing. It's usually around that frequency where, yeah, that build-up just really starts to happen in that ugly way. And this is also what's ruining the punch and the tightness of my kick drum itself. So I'm not afraid to do a big cut there to really just clean up that entire area. And notice what happens when I bypass. So with that cut engaged, we still get like the benefits of the extra sustain and the extra, I guess, sense of, you know, space around the drums and the front to back image being bigger, but none of the ugly low mid buildup that's happening because of that 150 hertz area here. And this is actually a very common practice for me to do on room mics because I tend to feel that most drum room recordings, at least in like mid-size rooms, will have some sort of a problem like this. And so yeah, just doing a big cut here, like I'm doing 9 dB, really solves that problem in a nice way, and you get all the benefits, but no messy low mid-range when we do this. So that's the second big insight. I'm also hearing a little bit of a honky thing in this particular room recording, actually. Like that, I don't really want that, so I'll just quickly take that out. Again, just more benefits, less mess, I guess. Okay, the third key insight is simply a way to emphasize that front to back image between your close mics and your room mics even further. And you simply do that by having a pretty aggressive low pass filter on your room mics. I'll show you that in solo first, and I'll explain the thinking behind it. So let's just see this in action. So I like to go pretty aggressive with this low pass filter and just really let all the lower, I guess there's the mid-range and the low end come through, but none of the presence and the top end, at least get rid of most of that in order to create the illusion that the room and that these drums are in is much bigger, but also that they're just farther back into the room. Because if you think about sound, like high frequencies simply don't have the power or the strength, I guess, to travel very far. So if you put more distance between you and the sound source, the first frequencies that will die over that distance are the high frequencies. So if you want to simulate a sound being very close and up front to you, then the best way to do that is really just by cranking up a lot of high frequencies, which, as you can see, I'm doing exactly that on, for example, my kick in, plus 15 dB at 8K, and my snare top as well here, a 9 dB at 8K as well. So I'm really bringing these like up front and in my face simply because I'm making my brain think these have to be close because the high frequencies haven't died yet over the distance. I hope that makes any sense. And then on the room mics, we do the complete opposite. We take out a lot of these high frequencies, and so we make it. We suggest this sound source to be very far away, and that creates a very nice play between and a very nice contrast between the close mics being up front and the room mics being very far away. Let's put that in context of the full drum mix and see what that sounds like here. Let me crank up the room mics a little bit so that you can hear this a little bit better. As soon as I bypassed that low pass filter, then the room mics kind of took a step forward and they kind of became similarly close to me as the close mics, but now I'll engage this and you notice that the whole front to back image just becomes much deeper. You notice we're losing some energy, of course, as well, like from the cymbals, some top end and all that stuff. If we feel like that is still happening in context of the full mix, then of course we can just bring up the overheads or maybe push a little bit more high frequencies in those. But in terms of the front to back image, I really like what this is doing. And yeah, just try to think about up front, a lot of high frequencies, farther back into the mix, less high frequencies. You can do the same trick on like backing vocals that you want to push back into the mix or something like that. This is another key insight that has really helped me to position my drum room mics and all that stuff. So hopefully they help you too. Okay, and lastly, I have a quick bonus one, and that is quite simply just regular volume. And most specifically, what I'm noticing in all these hundreds of mixes that I've been reviewing is that a lot of people tend to mix their room mics too low. And that is because, at least that's what I'm assuming, is that they're listening to the drums only, and then they decide the right level for the room mics, and then they leave it alone. So let's just try that, and then let's see if that actually works in context of the full mix. So let's just play all these drums, and I'll try to set the level here. So when I'm listening to these drums in solo, I feel like this is a good setting where it's not really booming things up too much, but it still adds a nice sense of space and everything. I would say that is okay, but now if we put in the bass and the guitars, it's like as soon as you bring in other elements into this mix, the first things that will get lost are like room sounds and reverbs and delays and everything like that. So I highly recommend that you make this decision for the right volume setting of your room mics in context of the full mix only, because now I'm not really hearing any room mics whatsoever. And I really want to bring them up. And I can actually bring them up safely by another 7 dB or so before I start to feel like, now it's getting too much or something like that. And so definitely all these volume decisions have to be made, especially when it comes about room tracks and reverbs and delays, like I said, have to be made in context of the full mix. Because again, they will be the first sounds that get lost by the guitars, by the vocals, by drums and all that stuff. Now, if we go back to the drums in solo, you'll probably notice that we have the room mics way louder than we had before. And even when I'm listening to this in solo, I feel like I want to lower these room mics, you know, and it's too much. But yeah, now we know that as soon as we put the guitars back in, it's going to sound super flat again, and I don't want that. So sweet spot material right there. Alright, I hope this video was helpful to you, and I hope that mixing room mics makes a little bit more sense to you now. Let me know if it does, and if you want to have some more insights into compressing the direct mics for kick and snare specifically, check out this video next.